When I was 19, my brother stole $12,000 from our dad and blamed me. My mom believed him without question and sent me to a behavioral rehab for stealing and lying. 2 years later, Dad discovered the missing bank statements in my brother's room. And that's when he also found out my mom had helped cover it up. He filed for divorce the same week. Imagine the coldest betrayal you can possibly conceive. Now picture it coming from your own family. That was my reality at 19. My father, shaking with rage, held up an empty bank folder. $12,000 vanished. My mother, eyes burning with disgust, stared straight through me. And my brother Tyler? He was just there, a smirk playing on his lips, as my parents told me I was guilty, and they were sending me away. My desperate pleas of innocence dissolved into thin air. They said it wasn't prison because they still loved me, but I needed to be fixed. The sting of their words, the absolute, crushing injustice, cut deeper than any wound I'd ever known. On the surface, we were a perfectly normal, middle-class family. A comfortable 4-bedroom house in suburban Cleveland, Ohio. My dad, Frank, had worked his way up to bank manager, a man who lived by his mantra. Your reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. I truly believed him. Mom, Diane, worked part-time, but her real devotion? That was always my older brother, Tyler. It was clear as day who her favorite was. Tyler got B's and C's. She celebrated his well-rounded approach. I got straight A's. I was warned about burning out. Tyler made JV baseball as a benchwarmer. She had a custom t-shirt. I won the state science competition. She was too tired to come. Tyler, 22, was undeniably charming, with that easy smile that could disarm anyone. But I saw the flickers of something darker behind it. Resentment, especially when Dad talked about responsibility or planning for the future. Tyler was a master of telling people what they wanted to hear, particularly Mom. 4 or 5 years, Dad had been saving, meticulously, in a blue ledger for his dream, financial freedom advisors, helping regular folks build wealth. He had nearly $40,000 tucked away. Things had gotten really tense in our house over the past 6 months. Tyler had dropped out of state university. College isn't for everyone, he'd announced at dinner. I need to find myself. Dad had pushed his plate away, utterly crushed. Mom, of course, had leapt to Tyler's defense, praising his courage and independent thinking. I watched the rift between my parents widen. Dad worked longer hours. Mom defended Tyler's escalating laziness. Tyler, he slept until noon, then disappeared with friends Dad called troublemakers. Me? I was working part-time at the campus tech support, taking community college classes, saving every penny to transfer to a 4-year university. I didn't want to burden Dad while he chased his dream. Every Sunday, I'd add a little more to my savings, just like Dad taught me. Then, 3 days before my life imploded, I came home early from a canceled class. I found Tyler in our shared bathroom, hunched over his phone, his face sickly pale. "Everything okay?" I asked. He jumped, stuffing the phone in his pocket. "Mind your own business, Jeff." But I'd seen the screen. A text, final warning. $5,000 by Friday, or we start breaking things. Starting with your fingers. My blood ran cold. Tyler, are you in some kind of trouble? Maybe Dad could help. His fear morphed into pure contempt. Dad? Mr. Perfect would kill me. Besides, I have it handled. It didn't sound handled. It sounded like a threat. He grabbed my shoulder, his fingers digging in. You breathe a word to anyone, and you'll regret it. I mean it, Jeff. I backed off. Tyler had always been moody, but this was different. There was raw desperation in his eyes. That night, I overheard my parents arguing. Tyler had gone to Mom for money, and she'd given it to him from her personal savings. Dad was furious. "He's using you, Diane. When will you see that?" Mom shot back. "He's going through a difficult time. Unlike your precious Jeff, who you think can do no wrong." I flinched, stung by being dragged into their fight. Dad rarely compared us, but hearing Mom's bitterness about me was a shock. The next day, Tyler was strangely cheerful, whistling as he got ready. "Got plans?" I asked cautiously. "Meeting some friends. Might have found a way to solve my problems." He winked. His newfound confidence sent a shiver down my spine. I should have paid more attention to that feeling. Maybe I could have prevented everything that followed. 2 days later, Sunday evening, I came home from a library study session to utter chaos. Dad was in his home office, tearing through papers. Mom was sobbing on the phone. Tyler sat at the kitchen table, looking solemn, but with that same unsettling glint in his eyes. What's going on? I asked. Tyler looked up slowly. Dad's business savings. Someone took it. Before I could even process that, Dad stormed in, his face crimson. $12,000, he choked out, gone from the account. And the bank statements for the last 3 months are missing. That's when Tyler looked directly at me. A chill ran straight through me. Something was terribly wrong, and it was about to get so much worse. The next morning, I woke to find my parents and Tyler waiting for me in the living room. Dad held a small plastic bag with a receipt and a bank slip inside. "Sit down, Jeff," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. I sat, confused, my heart hammering. Tyler wouldn't meet my eyes. "We need to talk about the money," Dad continued. $12,000 is missing from my business account. "I heard," I said. "That's terrible. Do you know what happened?" Mom scoffed. "Stop pretending, Jeff. We know." "Know what?" Dad placed the plastic bag on the coffee table. "These were found in your desk drawer. A receipt for a laptop, $2,000, and a withdrawal slip with a forged signature. Your signature." I stared at the items. "I didn't buy a laptop, and I definitely didn't take any money." "I would never do that to you, Dad." Tyler interjected. "We found cash in your closet. In that old shoebox where you keep your baseball cards." My mind raced. I hadn't touched those cards in years. "What? That's impossible. Someone put it there." "Stop lying." Mom screamed, startling us all. "Tyler saw you at the bank 2 weeks ago. You didn't see him, but he saw you at Dad's branch." I spun to Tyler, disbelief warring with horror. "That's not true. I haven't been to Dad's bank in months." Tyler looked genuinely sad, the perfect picture of a disappointed brother. "I didn't want to believe it either, Jeff, but I saw you. And when Dad said money was missing, I had to tell them." "This is insane. I didn't take anything." I pleaded with Dad, desperate for him to see the truth. "Dad, you know me. I would never steal from you. I've been saving my own money for college." Dad looked torn, and for a moment, I thought he might actually believe me. Then Mom spoke up. "We checked your bank account, Jeff. There have been several large deposits over the past few weeks." "Explain that." My stomach dropped. "Those are my paychecks and some money Grandma sent for my birthday." $3,000 from Grandma? For your birthday?" Mom's voice dripped with acid. "No, that was $500. The rest was from work and tutoring." Dad sighed heavily. "Your work deposits are separate, smaller amounts. These are cash deposits, Jeff." I felt like I was drowning. Nothing I said mattered. They had already decided. I was guilty. The next few hours were a blur of accusations and my futile denials. Dad searched my room and found $4,000 in cash hidden in my closet, money I'd never seen. My laptop showed browser history of expensive purchases, websites I'd never visited. By evening, my parents had made their decision. Since I was 19, an adult, they could have pressed charges. Instead, they were sending me to a behavioral rehabilitation center in Michigan. The alternative was a criminal record. "We're trying to help you, Jeff," Dad said, looking utterly exhausted. "This way you get treatment instead of a criminal record." "Treatment for something I didn't do," I responded, my voice hollow. That night, I called my girlfriend, Amanda. We'd been together for almost a year. If anyone would believe me, it was her. "I don't know what to think, Jeff," she said, her voice distant. "Tyler called me earlier. He said you've been acting strange for months. He's worried about you." "Tyler called you?" "Amanda, he's lying. He set me up." "Why would he do that?" "It doesn't make sense." "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out." "You know me, Amanda. Do you honestly think I would steal from my dad?" The pause before her answer told me everything. "I thought I knew you," she finally said. "But maybe I don't." One by one, my friends turned away. Rumors spread like wildfire. Only my best friend, Scott, stood by me. "This is crazy, man," Scott said when he snuck over that night. "Tyler's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown from academic pressure. He's framing me, Scott. I'm sure of it. But why?" I thought about that threatening text. "I think he's in some kind of trouble. Maybe gambling debts." Scott looked skeptical. "That's a big leap from a text. I need you to do something for me while I'm gone. Keep an eye on Tyler. See what he's doing, who he's hanging out with." "How long will you be gone?" I swallowed hard. "The program is 6 months minimum. Could be up to 2 years depending on my progress." Scott shook his head in disbelief. "This is messed up. I'll do what I can." The night before I was due to leave, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I went downstairs for water and heard hushed voices from the kitchen. Tyler and Mom. I froze in the hallway, straining to hear. "He'll be fine," Mom was saying. "This place has a good reputation, and it's better than jail." "I still feel bad," Tyler replied, without an ounce of actual remorse in his voice. "But what choice did I have? They were going to break my legs, Mom." "Don't talk about that. Not here. It's done now. You paid them back. That's what matters." Then, the chilling question from Tyler. "What if Jeff convinces Dad it wasn't him?" Mom's voice hardened. "He won't. I'll make sure of it. Your father listens to me." Ice flooded my veins. They were in it together. Tyler had stolen the money to pay off gambling debts, and Mom, my own mother, had helped him frame me. I wanted to burst into that kitchen, scream at them, but what good would that do? It would be my word against theirs, and they had already convinced Dad I was a liar and a thief. Instead, I silently returned to my room and spent the night writing everything down. The next morning, I hid the journal in Scott's car when he came to say goodbye. If nothing else, there would be a record of the truth. As my parents drove me to the facility, I sat in silence, watching the world blur past. How had my life fallen apart so completely in just 3 days? "This is for your own good, Jeff," Mom said from the front seat. "You'll thank us someday." I didn't respond. I was already planning how I would survive this injustice and someday, somehow, clear my name. Greenwood Behavioral Health Center looked nothing like the brochures. No smiling young people on manicured lawns. Just a cluster of gray buildings, chain-link fences, 20 miles from anywhere in rural Michigan. The intake process was humiliating. They took everything: my watch, my belt. I was handed standard-issue gray sweatpants and a blue t-shirt. A bored nurse asked me about drug use, self-harm, violent tendencies. "I don't have any of those issues," I told her. "I'm here because of a mistake." She didn't even look up. Everyone says that on the first day. My room was small, sparse, with 2 narrow beds. My roommate, Jordan, was already there, tall and lanky, with dark circles under his eyes. He barely acknowledged me. "What are you in for?" he asked later. "I didn't do anything. My brother stole money and framed me." Jordan laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Classic denial. I said the same thing my first week. Blamed everyone but myself. "This isn't denial. It's the truth." He shrugged. "Truth's a lie in here. Doesn't matter. Say what they want to hear if you want to get out faster." That was my first lesson at Greenwood. The truth had no value here. The entire program was built on the assumption that we were all liars, manipulators, and thieves who needed to be broken down and rebuilt. Group therapy was the absolute worst. 8 of us in a circle under the watchful eye of Dr. Winters, a thin woman with steel gray hair and unsettlingly penetrating eyes. "Admission is the first step to recovery," she droned. "You can't heal until you acknowledge your wrongs." One by one, the others would confess: drug dealing, stealing, fraud, violence. When my turn came, I would simply say, "I didn't do what I'm accused of." Dr. Winters would make a note. "Still in denial. We'll get there, Jeff." After 3 weeks, I was assigned to individual therapy with Dr. Marshall, a younger counselor with kind eyes and a more approachable manner. "Tell me about your family," he said in our first session. I hesitated, then decided to tell him everything. Tyler's favoritism, the threatening text, the conversation I'd overheard. Dr. Marshall listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "That's quite a story." "It's not a story. It's what happened. Jeff, I've been doing this a long time. Family scapegoating is real, but framing someone for theft is extreme. Is it possible you're misremembering some details?" "No. I know what I heard." He studied me. "I'll make you a deal. I won't push you to admit to something if you'll work with me on other issues. Anger management, coping skills. Things that will help you regardless of how you ended up here." It wasn't much, but it was the first shred of respect I'd received at Greenwood. I agreed. Meanwhile, my contact with family was strictly limited to weekly phone calls and monthly visits. Mom called religiously, her voice dripping with syrupy false concern. "The therapists say you're still in denial, Jeff. Why can't you just admit what you did so you can get better?" Dad rarely spoke, and when he did, he sounded tired and distant. During his first visit, 3 months in, we sat across from each other in the sterile visiting room, struggling for words. "How's the business plan going?" I finally asked. He looked down. "On hold for now. Financial setback, as you know." "Dad?" I started. I need to tell you something. I think Tyler, don't Jeff. Don't blame your brother for your actions. That's not taking responsibility. Your mother can't even bring herself to visit. This has been hard on everyone. I realized then that Dad wasn't ready to hear the truth. Whatever concocted evidence Tyler and Mom had manufactured, it had utterly convinced him. Pushing now would only drive him further away. 6 months into my stay, something unexpected happened. I received a letter from Amanda. I hadn't heard from her since before Greenwood. Jeff, it began, I don't know if you'll read this, but I need to say I'm sorry. Tyler has been acting strange, spending lots of money, partying all the time. He tried to ask me out last month. Said you and I were over anyway. It made me think about everything. I don't know what happened with your dad's money, but I should have trusted you more. A glimmer of hope. If Amanda was seeing cracks in Tyler's story, maybe others would too. Around the same time, Jordan and I had become something like friends. He'd been caught stealing prescription drugs to sell. Unlike me, he freely admitted his guilt. The difference, he told me one night, is that I actually did it. And sometimes I wonder if you really didn't. You don't act like the rest of us. What do you mean? You're not angry enough. Most guys here are pissed at getting caught. Even if we don't admit it. You're just sad, like you lost something you can't get back. His observation hit home. I wasn't just sad. I was grieving. Grieving for my reputation, my freedom, my future plans, and most of all, for the family I thought I had. After 8 months, I decided to change strategies. Instead of fruitlessly protesting my innocence, I would use my time at Greenwood constructively. I enrolled in every educational program available: computer skills, business basics, psychology. If I couldn't leave, I would at least emerge with something useful. Dr. Marshall noticed the change. You seem more focused lately. I can't control what people believe about me, I told him, but I can control what I do with my time. He nodded approvingly. That's a healthy perspective. A few weeks later, Dr. Marshall pulled me aside. There's a visitor for you. Not family. My heart leaped, thinking it might be Scott. Instead, I faced Mrs. Reynolds, my former high school English teacher. Jeff, she said, embracing me awkwardly. I'm in Michigan for a conference, and your friend Scott told me you were here. I had to come. We talked for an hour. She told me about home, about how people were starting to notice Tyler's increasingly erratic behavior. He's living in your old room now, she said. Driving your car, too. Scott says he's throwing money around like water, but no one knows where it's coming from. A strange mix of vindication and despair washed over me. Tyler had taken everything, even my space and possessions, but his reckless behavior might eventually expose the truth. As Mrs. Reynolds left, she squeezed my hand. I've taught hundreds of students, Jeff. I know who you are. This isn't right. It was a small thing, that vote of confidence from a respected teacher, but it kept me going through the darkest days that followed. By the 1-year mark, I had earned enough trust to work in the facility's small computer lab, helping maintain their outdated systems. I'd also started attending the center's limited college courses. Dr. Marshall had become a true advocate, arguing in staff meetings that my continued denial wasn't necessarily pathological. Some innocent people maintain their innocence. I overheard him telling Dr. Winters. Forced confession isn't therapeutic. It's coercive. Their relationship grew strained over my case. Dr. Winters, convinced I was manipulating Dr. Marshall with sociopathic charm, still wrote me off as in denial. But officially, my case file showed improvement. Patient demonstrates responsibility and reliability, shows empathy toward peers, no disciplinary incidents. Then came the day that changed everything. 18 months into my stay, I received a letter from my father. It was short, just a few lines. Jeff, I miss you. I think about you every day. Things at home aren't good. I hope you're doing well. Love, Dad. It was the most emotion he'd expressed since this nightmare began. But when I mentioned it to Mom during our next call, she sounded genuinely confused. What letter? Your father hasn't sent any letters. A terrible suspicion formed. The next day, I convinced Jordan to create a distraction while I slipped into the administration office. It took minutes to find my file. Inside was a stack of letters from my father, dating back months. Letters full of questions, doubts about my guilt, and growing suspicions about Tyler. Letters I had never received. Someone had been intercepting my mail. And there was only one person with both the motive and the opportunity. My mother, who had volunteered to handle all communication with the facility. I carefully put everything back and left, my mind racing. The truth was finally starting to emerge, but I was still trapped. And now I knew my mother would go to extraordinary lengths to keep me here. After discovering the intercepted letters, I knew I couldn't depend on anyone else to fix my situation. If I was going to reclaim my life, I needed to prepare. I decided to fully leverage Greenwood's resources. The computer lab became my sanctuary. The machines were outdated, but enough to learn basic programming and web design. Mr. Talbot, the elderly volunteer supervisor, recognized my aptitude. "You have a gift for this," he told me, bringing in textbooks. "Don't waste it." Jordan and I had formed a solid friendship. He was preparing for release, working in the kitchen, learning culinary skills. Two other residents, Marcus and Dion, joined our small group. Marcus was in for prescription fraud, Dion for stealing cars. Both had owned up to their crimes. "I did what I did," Dion told me. "But what happened to you is messed up. That's why the system is broken." These friendships saved me from the isolation that might have broken my spirit. We studied, shared meals, talked about the future. They believed my story when no one else would. Dr. Marshall continued to be my strongest ally among the staff. He never explicitly said he believed my innocence, but he helped me process my feelings without demanding a confession. "The anger you feel is natural," he said, "but how you channel it will define your future." "I'm trying not to let it consume me," I admitted. "Some days are harder than others." "What helps on those days?" I thought about it. "Learning, planning, focusing on who I want to be when this is over." He nodded approvingly. "That's remarkably healthy, Jeff." He gave me books on psychology, financial literacy, philosophy, texts beyond the facility's limited library. These became my nighttime companions, expanding my understanding of human behavior. I began to see my family dynamics with clearer, colder eyes. Mom's favoritism wasn't just annoying, it was pathological. Tyler's manipulation wasn't just selfishness, it was calculated exploitation. Even Dad's blindness revealed his own avoidance. Understanding didn't excuse their actions, but it helped me contextualize them. This wasn't just about $12,000. It was about deep-seated family patterns that had been building for years. Contact with my family remained limited and strained. Dad's visits increased slightly, but he remained conflicted and withdrawn. Mom's calls were exercises in manipulation, guilt trips, and vague updates. Through Scott's letters, now sent directly to Dr. Marshall, I learned things at home had deteriorated. Dad was working even longer hours. Mom and Tyler were spending money recklessly. Tyler had fully taken over my room, claiming his was too small, and was driving my old Honda Civic like it was always his. "He talks about you like you're dead," Scott wrote. "Like you're never coming back. It's creepy, man." Most disturbingly, Scott reported Tyler had attempted to date Amanda shortly after I was sent away. "He told everyone you guys had broken up before you left." Amanda shut him down hard, but he kept pushing until she threatened to get a restraining order. This particular betrayal cut deep. My own brother had not only stolen my freedom, but had tried to take the one relationship that mattered most to me. More troubling news came from Mrs. Reynolds, who visited whenever her conferences brought her to Michigan. "Tyler," she said sadly, "had inserted himself into Dad's business planning, claiming he had matured. Your father seems to be grooming him to be his partner instead of you. I think he's trying to salvage some hope for the future." The irony was a punch to the gut. Tyler, who had stolen Dad's business savings, was now positioning himself to benefit from the very dream he had delayed. Around the 18-month mark, I had an unexpected visitor, my grandmother, Dad's mother. At 82, Grandma Ruth had made the 4-hour drive by herself, against my parents' wishes. "I know something isn't right about all this," she said, her hands trembling with age, but her eyes sharp as ever. "Franklin is too proud to admit he might have made a mistake. And Diane," she shook her head, "that woman has always played favorites." Grandma Ruth couldn't stay long, but before leaving, she pressed a small key into my palm. "Storage locker at Preston's. Unit 227. There's some money there, and your grandfather's watch, for when you get out." Her visit gave me something precious, the knowledge that not everyone in my family had abandoned me. The most shocking revelation came 19 months into my stay. A new letter from Scott, again through Dr. Marshall, contained photocopies of bank statements Scott had managed to find while helping Dad organize the garage. "These are from the months right before the money went missing," Scott wrote. "Look at the withdrawals. There, highlighted in yellow, were multiple withdrawals from Dad's business account, all made when I was verifiably elsewhere, at work, at school, once, even during a documented doctor's appointment. I showed the copies to Dr. Marshall. "This is compelling, Jeff," he admitted. "Have you shown your father?" "How?" "Mom screens everything, and he barely speaks during visits." Dr. Marshall considered this. "I think it's time I had a professional conversation with your father about your treatment plan." 2 weeks later, Dad arrived for an unscheduled visit. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, new gray in his hair. Dr. Marshall had arranged for us to meet in his office. "Dr. Marshall says you've made excellent progress," Dad said stiffly. "He thinks you might be ready for release soon." Hope flared in my chest. "Really? When?" "That depends on several factors." He paused. "Jeff, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. No matter what it is." I met his gaze steadily. "I've never lied to you, Dad." He took a deep breath. "Did you take that money?" "No, I didn't." Dad closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, I saw it. The first glimmer of doubt about my guilt. Not full belief in my innocence, but a crack in the wall. "Things at home aren't good," he said quietly. "Your mother and I, well, we're having problems." "And Tyler?" He trailed off. "What about Tyler?" Dad shook his head. "He's changed. Or maybe I'm just seeing who he's always been." He stood abruptly. "I need to go, but I'll be back next week. We'll talk more then." As he left, Dr. Marshall entered, looking pleased. "That went well," he said. "He's starting to doubt." I replied, hardly daring to believe it. "More than starting, I'd say. I spoke with him at length before your meeting. Showed him some of the inconsistencies in your case. He's a rational man, Jeff. Give him time to process." For the first time in nearly 2 years, I allowed myself to feel real, exhilarating hope. The truth was fighting its way to the surface, one small revelation at a time. The next month passed in a blur of anticipation and anxiety. I continued my routine, excelling in the computer courses and even helping teach basic skills to newer residents. I compiled all the evidence I had, organizing it meticulously with Jordan's help. "You should become a detective," he joked, as we arranged the timeline. "Or a lawyer." "I just want my life back," I told him. "And I want Tyler to face consequences for once." As my potential release grew closer, I began planning for life after Greenwood. Dr. Marshall helped me apply for community college courses and reached out to halfway houses. "What about going home?" he asked. I shook my head. "I can't live with them again. Not after everything that's happened." "Your father seems to want to make amends." "Maybe, but my mother and Tyler are still there. I need a clean start." Dr. Marshall nodded understanding. "It's your decision. Just don't close doors permanently out of current pain." 23 months after arriving, nearly 2 full years of my life gone, I received the news I'd been waiting for. The review board had approved my release, scheduled for the following month. That same week, I received one final, devastating piece of information. A letter from Scott contained a bombshell. Tyler hadn't just stolen $12,000. According to financial documents Scott had glimpsed while doing yard work, Tyler had been systematically draining Dad's accounts for months. The total was now over $50,000. "He uses your dad's computer when no one's home," Scott wrote. "I think he's forging signatures on electronic transfers. Your dad's been working so much he probably hasn't had time to check everything." The true scope of Tyler's betrayal was even greater than I had imagined. And soon, I would be free to expose it. Freedom felt surreal. After 24 months in Greenwood, even mundane things seemed extraordinary. The sound of traffic, the smell of restaurant food, the ability to choose my own clothes. Scott picked me up in his battered Jeep. We drove in silence for the first 20 minutes, both overwhelmed by the moment. "Where to?" he finally asked. "Your place? If the offer still stands. Guest room's all yours, man. For as long as you need." Scott had graduated from community college and moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment, working at a local tech repair shop. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean. And more importantly, it wasn't Greenwood. "Your parents think you're staying at a halfway house," Scott told me as we carried my meager belongings inside. "Your mom called there twice, already asking about your behavior. She's still trying to control the narrative," I said. "Make sure everyone thinks I'm unstable." "Well, your dad came by the shop yesterday. Asked if I'd heard from you." He seemed worried, but not in a bad way. I unpacked my few possessions, including the journal I'd kept. "I need to see him alone, without Mom or Tyler around." He usually stops at Mancini's diner for lunch on Thursdays. Has for years. 2 days later, I sat in a booth at Mancini's, nursing a coffee, my heart pounding. Precisely at 12:15, Dad walked in, ordered his usual turkey sandwich, and took a seat at the counter. I gave him a few minutes, then approached. Dad. He turned, his expression cycling rapidly from shock to uncertainty to something like guilt. Jeff, I didn't know you were back in town. Got back a few days ago. Can we talk? He hesitated, then nodded toward the empty seat beside him. How are you adjusting? It's strange being out. Where are you staying? With Scott for now. Looking for work. I took a deep breath. Dad, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me this time. He studied my face. You've changed. You look older. 2 years will do that. I tried to keep the bitterness from my voice. Dad, I didn't take that money. I never did. It was Tyler. I expected denial, anger, or dismissal. Instead, Dad sighed heavily. I've been going through the accounts. There are discrepancies. My heart leaped. What kind of discrepancies? Withdrawals I don't remember making. Transfers to accounts I don't recognize. He rubbed his face tiredly. Jeff, if I made a mistake. It wasn't just a mistake, Dad. It was a deliberate frame-up. Tyler needed money to pay off gambling debts. Mom helped him cover it up. Dad's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation against your mother. I know what I heard. The night before I left for Greenwood, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. Tyler admitted he took the money because they were going to break his legs. Mom told him not to worry. She'd make sure you believed it was me. Dad was silent for a long moment. I need proof, Jeff. Not just your word. I pulled out a folder containing copies of everything I'd gathered. The bank statements Scott had sent, a timeline of events, and statements from people like Mrs. Reynolds, who had witnessed Tyler's suspicious behavior. It's not conclusive, I admitted, but it's enough to warrant investigation. Check your home office. The original bank statements might still be hidden somewhere. Dad took the folder, his hands trembling slightly. I need time to look into this. I understand, but please, Dad, be careful. If they realize you're suspicious, they might try to cover their tracks even more. As we parted, Dad hugged me awkwardly. I'm sorry, son, for everything. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that. I know, Dad. The next week was agonizing. I found a job at Smart Tech Solutions, a small IT company run by Mr. Chong, who was willing to take a chance on me despite the 2-year gap. Dr. Marshall had made calls on my behalf. Everyone deserves a second chance, Mr. Chong said. The work was straightforward, troubleshooting computers. It gave me structure and income while I waited for Dad. I tried to keep a low profile, but inevitably ran into people I knew. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered. A few, like Mrs. Reynolds and my old science teacher, Mr. Garrett, greeted me warmly. 10 days after our lunch, I received a text from Dad. Need to talk. Not at home or in public. Can you meet at the park? The old fishing dock. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. The fishing dock was where Dad and I used to spend Saturday mornings. It was secluded. I arrived early, watching the sunset reflect on the lake. Dad arrived precisely at 7, carrying a large manila envelope. His face was drawn, his movements stiff. I found them, he said, without preamble. The original bank statements. They were in a box in Tyler's closet, hidden under some old sports equipment. My breath caught. And they show multiple unauthorized withdrawals, not just the $12,000, but smaller amounts before and larger ones since. All with forged signatures or electronic authorizations. Did you confront him? Dad sat heavily on the weathered bench. Not yet. I wanted more evidence. So I installed a keylogger on my home computer. I was surprised by his initiative. Dad wasn't tech-savvy. The IT guy at work helped, he explained. What I found? He shook his head. Tyler's been accessing my accounts regularly, transferring money to online gambling sites mostly. He's taken over $50,000 in total. And Mom, did you find anything about her involvement? Dad's face darkened. There were emails between Diane and Tyler planning how to frame you. She suggested planting the cash in your room. Tyler forged the withdrawal slips. His voice broke. They did this to you. My wife and my son did this to my other son. The confirmation of what I'd known all along should have been satisfying. Instead, it just made me profoundly sad. I'm sorry, Dad. He looked up sharply. You're sorry, Jeff? I sent you away for 2 years. I believed them over you. You had evidence. Fake evidence, but evidence. They played on your trust. Dad reached out and gripped my shoulder. I failed you. As a father, I failed you completely. I'll never forgive myself for that. What happens now? Now, Dad said, straightening his shoulders. We get justice. Over the next few days, Dad continued gathering evidence, maintaining a facade of normalcy at home. He recorded conversations, documented discrepancies, consulted discreetly with a lawyer friend. Meanwhile, I had my first encounter with Tyler since my return. He showed up at Smart Tech, swaggering in. Well, look who it is, he said loudly. The prodigal brother returns. I kept my voice neutral. What do you want, Tyler? Just thought I'd see how the black sheep is doing. Mom's worried you'll cause trouble. I'm just trying to rebuild my life. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Stay in your lane, Jeff. You've been gone 2 years. Things have changed. Dad and I are starting the business together now. Good for you. I mean it. Don't rock the boat. You won't win. He smiled, but his eyes were cold. No one would believe a mental case over the good son anyway. It took every ounce of self-control not to react. Is that all? Tyler's smile faltered slightly. For now, just remember what I said. After he left, I called Dad. Tyler just came by my work. He's nervous. Good, Dad replied grimly. He should be. That weekend, through Scott, I reconnected with Amanda. We met at a quiet cafe. You look good, she said, studying my face. Different, but good. 2 years will do that. Jeff, I'm so sorry about everything. About doubting you. I shook my head. It's okay. The evidence was convincing. Still, I should have trusted what I knew about you. She hesitated. Tyler tried to. Well, he asked me out a few weeks after you left. Said you and I were over anyway. I heard. Scott told me. I told him to go to hell. He didn't take it well. Started telling people I'd let him on. She rolled her eyes. Classic Tyler. We talked for hours, cautiously rebuilding our connection. There was too much water under the bridge to simply resume our relationship, but the foundation of friendship remained strong. As we parted, Amanda hugged me tightly. I'm glad you're home, Jeff. Really glad. The pieces of my old life were slowly coming back together, though in a new configuration. Friends reconnecting. A job with potential. Even the possibility of continuing my education, with community college accepting my application for the spring semester. All that remained was to resolve the family situation once and for all. Dad called a family meeting for Sunday evening. He didn't tell me the exact plan, but asked me to be available by phone. I don't want you there initially, he explained. I need to handle this my way. I agreed, though reluctantly. That evening, I sat in Scott's apartment, phone in hand, waiting. The call came at 9:37 p.m. Jeff, Dad said, his voice thick. I need you to come to the house now. What happened? Everything. He paused. Everything happened. I drove to my parents' house with a sense of unreality. For 2 years, I'd imagined this moment, the truth finally coming to light. Now that it was happening, I felt strangely calm. The house was lit up like Christmas, every light blazing. Dad met me at the door, his face haggard but resolute. They're in the living room, he said quietly. It's bad, Jeff. Worse than we thought. I followed him inside. The living room looked like a tornado had hit it. Papers scattered across the coffee table. Mom sat rigidly on the couch, her face a mask of defiance. Tyler slumped in the armchair, eyes red from crying. Jeff, Mom said coldly, I should have known you'd be behind this. Behind what? The truth coming out. Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. I found the bank statements in Tyler's room and the emails between you two. I know everything. Mom's expression didn't change. You don't know anything. $53,742, Dad said precisely. That's how much Tyler has taken from our accounts over the past 3 years. Not just the business account, our retirement savings, the emergency fund, even the money we set aside for Jeff's education. I looked at Tyler, who wouldn't meet my eyes. 3 years. It started before I was sent away. Dad nodded grimly. The $12,000 was just when it accelerated. Tyler had gambling debts. When I started noticing discrepancies, you became the scapegoat. It wasn't supposed to go that far, Tyler mumbled. You were just supposed to get in trouble. Maybe be grounded, not sent away. That was your mother's idea, Dad said, his voice hardening. She suggested the rehabilitation center. Said it would teach Jeff a lesson while giving you time to fix things. I turned to Mom, searching for any sign of remorse. There was none. Why? I asked simply. Why would you do that to your own son? Mom's eyes flashed. Tyler needed help. You've always been fine on your own. The golden boy, Frank's favorite. So you destroyed 2 years of my life out of jealousy? I protected my child who needed me, she snapped. You were strong enough to handle it. The twisted logic left me speechless. In her mind, she had made the right choice. Dad intervened. When I confronted them earlier, Tyler broke down, admitted everything. But Diane, he shook his head. She still believes she did nothing wrong. You don't understand what it's like, Tyler said, finally looking at me. The gambling. It starts small, and then it takes over. I kept thinking one big win would fix everything. So you sacrificed me instead? I was desperate. They were threatening me. Real threats, Jeff. Dangerous people. And that justifies framing me? Having me locked away? Tyler had no answer. Dad picked up a folder from the coffee table. I've documented everything. The forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers, the falsified evidence against Jeff. He turned to Mom. The intercepted mail. Mom paled slightly. What mail? The letters I sent Jeff that he never received. Dr. Marshall kept copies of everything sent to Greenwood. My letters asking questions, expressing doubts. You made sure Jeff never saw those. I was protecting the family. Mom insisted. You were protecting yourself, Dad corrected. And enabling Tyler's addiction. What happens now? I asked. Dad took a deep breath. I've made my decision. I'm filing for divorce. Mom gasped. Frank, you can't be serious. After 25 years, I've never been more serious about anything. I can't stay married to someone who would sacrifice one child for another, who would lie to me for years. And Tyler? I asked. Tyler has 2 choices. He can go to gambling addiction treatment, get a job to start paying back what he stole, and cut all ties with his gambling associates. Or he can face criminal charges for fraud and theft. Tyler's head snapped up. You wouldn't. I would, Dad said firmly. What you and your mother did was criminal, Tyler. You're getting a chance Jeff never got. The opportunity to make amends without legal consequences. This is insane. Mom protested. You'd choose Jeff over your marriage, over Tyler's future? I'm choosing justice, Diane. And honesty. 2 things you seem to have forgotten the meaning of. The confrontation continued for hours. Tyler vacillated between tearful apologies and defensive justifications. Mom remained resolute that she had done nothing wrong. Dad, to his credit, never wavered. By midnight, the new reality had been established. Dad would file for divorce the following week. Tyler would enter a residential treatment program for gambling addiction, then move in with his friend Kevin while he worked to pay back what he'd stolen. Mom would stay with her sister until she found her own place. And me? Dad offered me my old room back, but it didn't feel right. Too many painful memories. I'll stay with Scott for now, I told him. But I appreciate the offer. As I prepared to leave, Tyler approached me awkwardly. Jeff, I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say, Tyler. You didn't just steal money. You stole 2 years of my life. That's something you can never repay. I know, but I'm going to try to make things right. Somehow, I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw something I'd never seen before, genuine remorse. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. But it was a start. Get help, Tyler. Real help. That's all I can say right now. As I left the house, Dad walked me to my car. I'll never forgive myself for not believing you, he said quietly. You believe me now? That's what matters. He shook his head. It's not enough. But I promise you this. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you. I drove back to Scott's apartment, feeling strangely light. The truth was finally out. Justice, imperfect as it was, had been served. And for the first time in 2 years, I could look forward instead of back. The next morning, Dad called. It's done, he said. I filed the divorce papers. Tyler's being admitted to Gateway Treatment Center this afternoon, and I've set up a new account for you to replace what should have been your college fund. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. It's not charity, Jeff. It's restitution. Please accept it. I agreed, recognizing that he needed to do this as much as I needed the support. Over the following weeks, news of what had happened spread through our community. Some people apologized for believing the worst of me. Others avoided me, embarrassed. A few, like Amanda's parents, invited me to dinner, a public show of support that meant more than they knew. Dr. Marshall drove down from Michigan to check on my adjustment. Over lunch, he shared something that helped me understand the bigger picture. Family systems often scapegoat the healthiest member, he explained. the one strong enough to carry the burden of others' dysfunction. It's never right, but it happens because that person can survive it. I almost didn't, I admitted. But you did. And that resilience will serve you for the rest of your life. As fall turned to winter, I settled into my new reality. Working at Smart Tech, taking evening classes, rebuilding relationships. Dad and I had dinner every Sunday, slowly repairing our bond. He had put the house up for sale, unable to live with the memories. Tyler, to everyone's surprise, was thriving in treatment. He called once a month, his apologies becoming less desperate and more genuine as he worked through his recovery. Mom remained the only holdout. She had moved to Cincinnati, still insisting she had done what any mother would do. She's created a narrative she can live with, Dad explained. Acknowledging the truth would destroy her self-image as a good mother. I had made peace with the fact that I might never have a normal relationship with her again. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. One Tuesday morning in November, exactly 1 year and 1 month after the confrontation, the office door opened to reveal an unexpected visitor, Tyler. He looked different, thinner, more subdued, with a maturity in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He carried a small gift bag and stood awkwardly in the doorway. I should have called first, he said. I can go if this isn't a good time. Dad emerged from his office. Tyler, this is a surprise. I just wanted to drop this off, Tyler said, placing the gift bag on the reception desk. It's my 1-year sobriety chip from GA. I thought maybe it could go on the wall here. As a reminder, the gesture was unexpectedly touching. Tyler wasn't asking for forgiveness or trying to minimize what he'd done. He was simply acknowledging his ongoing recovery as part of our shared story. Thank you, I said, finding my voice. That means something. Tyler nodded, then turned to leave. Wait, I heard myself say. Do you have time for coffee? The conversation that followed was one of the most difficult and important of my life. We sat in the cafe next door, two brothers with an ocean of hurt between us, trying to find a way forward. I think about what I did to you every day, Tyler said, staring into his cup. In treatment, they make you take full responsibility. No excuses, no justifications. And do you take full responsibility? He met my eyes directly. Yes, I stole Dad's money. I framed you when I got caught. I let you take the fall for my addiction. I ruined 2 years of your life that you can never get back. And I did it all to protect myself. The straightforward admission was more healing than any elaborate apology could have been. Why did Mom help you? I asked, the question that had haunted me for years. Tyler sighed. She's always seen me as the vulnerable one. From when we were kids, whenever I screwed up, she'd swoop in to fix it. It became our pattern. When I told her about the gambling debts, about the threats, she went into full protection mode. By sacrificing you. In her twisted logic, you were stronger. You could handle it. He shook his head. It's sick. I know that now. But at the time, we convinced ourselves it was just temporary. That you'd get a slap on the wrist, maybe some community service. But when Dad suggested Greenwood, we should have come clean then. That's when it crossed the line from bad to unforgivable. Tyler's voice cracked. I wake up every night thinking about you in that place, knowing I put you there. We talked for over 2 hours, laying bare the years of family dynamics. Tyler's lifelong feeling of inadequacy, Mom's enabling, Dad's obliviousness. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Tyler said as we prepared to leave. I haven't earned that yet. Maybe I never will. But I am asking for a chance to prove I'm not that person anymore. I considered his words carefully. I can't promise forgiveness, but I can promise to remain open to the possibility of a new relationship, one built on truth this time. It was a small step, but an important one. Not for Tyler's sake, but for my own healing. The following weeks brought more positive developments. Our business continued to grow, with a focus on helping young adults avoid financial exploitation. I developed a workshop specifically for college students about predatory lending and gambling addiction warning signs. During one workshop, a young man stayed behind. That stuff you said about gambling, he said hesitantly. About how it starts small. That's happening to my roommate. Would you like some resources to help him? I offered. That's why I stayed. He won't admit he has a problem, but I'm worried. I gave him information. As he turned to leave, I added, tell your roommate something for me. Tell him it takes more courage to ask for help than to keep pretending everything's fine. These moments of connection gave purpose to my pain. I couldn't reclaim the 2 years I'd lost, but I could ensure they weren't wasted. Around Christmas, Dad received a surprising call from Mom. After more than a year of denial, she had finally entered therapy herself, confronting the role she'd played. She's not asking for reconciliation, Dad clarified. Just a chance to make amends. Starting with you, if you're willing to hear her out. I thought about it for several days before agreeing to a phone call. When it came, Mom's voice was subdued, lacking the defensive edge I'd grown accustomed to. Jeff, she began, I don't know how to do this. How to apologize for something so unforgivable. You could start by acknowledging what you did, I suggested, keeping my voice neutral. There was a long pause. I betrayed you, she said finally, her voice breaking. I chose Tyler over you. I convinced myself it was what any mother would do, but it wasn't. It was what a bad mother would do. A failure of a mother. The raw honesty caught me off guard. This wasn't the carefully crafted non-apology I had expected. My therapist says I have a pathological need to be needed, she continued. Tyler needed me more, so I prioritized him, even at your expense. Especially at your expense. Another pause. I'm not asking you to forgive me, or even to have a relationship with me again. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did now, and I am so sorry. It wasn't a magical fix. One conversation couldn't erase years of favoritism or the trauma of false accusation, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall of denial that had separated us. Thank you for saying that, I responded carefully. It matters that you understand. As the new year began, our family continued its slow, awkward healing process. Dad and I built our business on principles of transparency and education. Tyler maintained his sobriety and restitution payments, gradually earning back small measures of trust. Mom remained in Cincinnati, sending occasional emails with updates on her therapy. She's created a narrative she can live with, Dad said. Acknowledging the truth would destroy her self-image. I made peace with the fact that I might never have a normal relationship with her again. In April, Dr. Marshall reached out with an unexpected proposal. Greenwood was establishing a new program focused on wrongful placements and rehabilitation after institutional trauma. He wanted me to speak at the launch event. Your perspective could help prevent others from experiencing what you did, he explained. But I understand completely if it's too difficult. I surprised myself by agreeing immediately. The opportunity to transform my experience into protection for others felt like the final piece of my healing journey. The day of the event, I stood before an audience of mental health professionals, social workers, and family court judges, sharing my story. Verification of allegations must be thorough and independent, I emphasized. Family dynamics must be considered. And most importantly, every person in a rehabilitation setting deserves regular reassessment by objective third parties. Afterward, a young social worker approached me. Your story has completely changed how I'll approach family-referred cases, she said. Thank you for your courage in sharing it. That evening, as Dad and I drove home, he said something that perfectly captured our journey. You know, when I started saving for financial freedom advisors, I imagined it as my legacy, something I could build and eventually pass on to my sons. I never imagined it would actually save our family instead. He was right. The business had become more than a livelihood. It was the scaffold around which we had rebuilt our relationships. Through helping others avoid financial pitfalls, we had found our way back to each other. 2 years after my release from Greenwood, for years after the false accusation that had derailed my life, I stood in the reception area of our new office. The sign above the desk featured both our names, Frank and Jeff Anderson, financial consultants. From the ashes of betrayal, something new and meaningful had emerged. The journey hadn't been easy. Dad's divorce from Mom was finalized in March, a somber end to a 25-year marriage built on shaky foundations. He sold the family home and used part of the proceeds to fund our venture, along with his original savings, partially replenished by Tyler's restitution. Tyler had completed 6 months of intensive treatment, followed by outpatient therapy and GA meetings. True to his word, he worked at a warehouse, lived frugally, sending a significant portion of each paycheck to Dad to slowly repay his debt. He's asking about you again, Dad mentioned one evening. Wants to know if you'd be open to meeting for coffee. I hesitated. Despite Tyler's transformation, I still struggled with the thought of facing him casually. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Dad nodded. No pressure. He understands it's your decision. My relationship with Dad had evolved into something stronger and more authentic. Gone was the blind authority figure who had failed to see what was happening. In his place was a humbled, wiser man who valued truth above comfort and justice above convenience. We had developed a robust business model focused on financial education for young adults and families. Rather than simply managing investments, we taught people how to avoid pitfalls, recognize predatory practices, and build security through knowledge. My experience at Greenwood gave me insight into how easily lives could be derailed, and Dad's experience with Tyler showed him how financial ignorance could enable addiction. Dr. Marshall had become a valuable professional connection, referring clients. He'd also helped me process my lingering trauma. "You've turned your pain into purpose," he observed. "That's the healthiest outcome possible from trauma." My personal life had stabilized. Scott remained my closest friend, a constant. Amanda and I had cautiously rekindled our relationship, taking things slowly. She was finishing her nursing degree and understood, better than most, how institutional systems could both help and harm. Mom remained the most difficult aspect. She was still in Cincinnati, convinced she had done nothing wrong. "She's created a narrative she can live with," Dad explained. Acknowledging the truth would destroy her self-image as a good mother. I had made peace with the fact that I might never have a normal relationship with her again. One Tuesday morning in November, exactly 1 year and 1 month after the confrontation, the office door opened. It was Tyler. He looked different, thinner, more subdued, with a quiet maturity. He carried a small gift bag. "I should have called first," he said. Dad emerged from his office, surprised. "I just wanted to drop this off," Tyler said, placing the bag on the reception desk. "It's my 1-year sobriety chip from GA. I thought maybe it could go on the wall here. As a reminder." The gesture was unexpectedly touching. Tyler wasn't asking for forgiveness or minimizing. He was simply acknowledging his ongoing recovery as part of our shared story. "Thank you," I said. "That means something." Tyler nodded, then turned to leave. "Wait," I heard myself say. "Do you have time for coffee?" We sat in the cafe next door, two brothers with an ocean of hurt between us, trying to find a way forward. "I think about what I did to you every day," Tyler said. "In treatment, they make you take full responsibility. No excuses, no justifications." He met my eyes. "Yes, I stole Dad's money. I framed you. I let you take the fall for my addiction. I ruined 2 years of your life. And I did it all to protect myself. Why did Mom help you?" I asked. He sighed. "She's always seen me as the vulnerable one. When I told her about the debts, the threats, she went into full protection mode. By sacrificing you. In her twisted logic, you were stronger. You could handle it." He shook his head. "It's sick. I know that now, but at the time, we convinced ourselves it was temporary. But when Dad suggested Greenwood, we should have come clean then. That's when it crossed the line from bad to unforgivable." His voice cracked. "I wake up every night thinking about you in that place, knowing I put you there." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Tyler said. "I haven't earned that yet. Maybe I never will. But I am asking for a chance to prove I'm not that person anymore." "I can't promise forgiveness," I told him. "But I can promise to remain open to the possibility of a new relationship, one built on truth this time." It was a small, important step. The following weeks brought more positive developments. Our business grew. I developed workshops for college students on predatory lending and gambling addiction. During one, a young man stayed behind. "That stuff you said about gambling, that's happening to my roommate." I gave him resources. "Tell your roommate," I said. "It takes more courage to ask for help than to keep pretending everything's fine." These moments of connection gave purpose to my pain. I couldn't reclaim the 2 years, but I could ensure they weren't wasted. Around Christmas, Dad received a surprising call from Mom. After more than a year of denial, she had entered therapy, confronting her role. "She's not asking for reconciliation," Dad clarified. "Just a chance to make amends. Starting with you, if you're willing." I agreed to a phone call. Mom's voice was subdued. "Jeff," she began, "I don't know how to apologize for something so unforgivable. You could start by acknowledging what you did," I suggested. A long pause. "I betrayed you," she said, her voice breaking. "I chose Tyler over you. I convinced myself it was what any mother would do, but it wasn't. It was what a bad mother would do. A failure of a mother. This wasn't the non-apology I expected. My therapist says I have a pathological need to be needed," she continued. "Tyler needed me more, so I prioritized him, even at your expense. especially at your expense. I'm not asking you to forgive me or even to have a relationship with me again. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did now, and I am so sorry. It wasn't a magical fix, but it was a beginning. Thank you for saying that, I responded. It matters that you understand. As the new year began, our family continued its slow, awkward healing. Dad and I built our business. Tyler maintained sobriety and restitution. Mom remained in Cincinnati, sending emails about her therapy. In April, Dr. Marshall invited me to speak at Greenwood's launch event for a new program focused on wrongful placements. Your perspective could help prevent others, he explained. I surprised myself by agreeing immediately. The day of the event, I stood before an audience, sharing my story. Verification of allegations must be thorough and independent. I emphasized, family dynamics must be considered, and most importantly, every person deserves regular reassessment by objective third parties. Afterward, a young social worker approached me. Your story has completely changed how I'll approach family-referred cases. Thank you for your courage. That evening, as Dad and I drove home, he captured our journey perfectly. You know, when I started saving for financial freedom advisors, I imagined it as my legacy. I never imagined it would actually save our family instead. He was right. The business had become more than a livelihood. It was the scaffold around which we had rebuilt our relationships. 2 years after my release, for years after the false accusation, I stood in our office, looking at the framed certificates. My business degree, Dad's financial advisor certification, and in the center, Tyler's 1-year sobriety chip. A daily reminder that even the deepest betrayals can lead to transformation. Life would never be what it might have been if Tyler hadn't stolen that $12,000. But in some ways, it had become richer, more purposeful. I had learned truths about family, justice, and resilience that most people never have to face. I had lost 2 years, but gained clarity that some spend a lifetime seeking. As our last client left, Dad placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Jeff. Prouder than you'll ever know. The words healed something deep inside me that I hadn't realized was still broken. Family is complicated. Trust, once broken, never quite rebuilds the same way. But sometimes, from the ashes of betrayal, something stronger and more authentic can emerge. Not a perfect replica of what was lost, but something new, tempered by fire, more resilient because it acknowledges the possibility of fracture. That's what we built. My father and I. A new kind of family, bound not by obligation or blood alone, but by conscious choice, hard-earned trust, and shared purpose. And in the end, that's worth more than $12,000 could ever buy. If you've experienced family betrayal or know someone who has, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Has someone ever taken advantage of your trust? Were you able to find healing afterward? Like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories of overcoming injustice, and share with someone who might need to know they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening to my story.